Good afternoon, councillors, staff, and those joining us online. Welcome along to this meeting of the Community, Wellbeing and Regulatory Committee, brought to you live from the city of Invercargill, which, despite the best efforts of Google, does exist.
Indeed.
We've yet to get to the bottom of it. I suspected maybe President Trump had renamed us and not told us. But if he had, it would be the best name ever.
Can you write an executive order then?
No, I don't have the authority to do that. Anyway, jokes aside, welcome along to this meeting. Welcome to Reverend Cook on Zoom. Nice to see your smiling face. And we have apologies from Councillors Kett and Campbell. Would somebody like to move that they are accepted?
Move.
Leslie, Grant, put that all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Any declarations of interest? Apart from the usual, we're very interested. Wonderful, good response. Let's go to the minutes of the Community, Wellbeing and Regulatory Committee from 10 December. Would somebody like to move that they are confirmed?
Move.
Leslie, Grant. Any points people wish to discuss? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, say aye.
Aye.
I'll move the minutes of the District Licensing Committee meetings from December and January, if there's a seconder. Barry, thank you. Any questions? Put that then, all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. We have the application for grant funding for the 2025 ILT Learn to Swim program. Please tell me we haven't dragged an additional staff member along. For everybody aware of this in the past?
Yes.
There's no difference.
And it's such a successful and well-recognised program. I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you. Steve seconded. Open for discussion. Put that all in favour.
Aye.
That's the kind of decision making I get up for. Thanks for your assistance of that, and thanks, Leslie, for also pointing out how valued it is as well.
Thank you.
Urban play options for annual plan public consultation. Dr. Puddle, welcome along. This is a process you've been working on for some time, and it's one that came up during this morning's annual plan workshop. People have had a chance to have a look through, but really I'll hand the floor over to you.
So just to introduce Urban Plays, the programme of work developed to support the delivery of a vibrant, family-friendly city centre, specifically addresses the urban play to make you stay principle from the city centre master plan. We're seeking approval of two options to be part of the annual plan public consultation and for you to recommend your preferred option to council. And I'll hand over to Damien to talk through the options for you.
Afternoon, councillors. I was just going to say I apologise, my voice is at a lower level of capacity today. By way of reminder, option one is the full city centre program. This is the original understanding of the program as conceptualised by the feasibility report. And so this is the 4.956 million from the LTP over 4 years. Plus a target of 1.5 million of external funding that is not critical for delivery, but would help maximise the opportunities of the program. And that option includes three components. The Play Hub, a multi-purpose playable public space in the centre of town. And while there are several site options that could be considered, all of the opportunities and challenges that exist for those, but at this stage we would be recommending 66 D Street for that type of site. Play Trail, a creatively designed pathway of playable assets that connect that play hub to other strategic sites in the city centre, and play activations, temporary installations and activities to test new play concepts and keep the city centre's play offering fresh and engaging. Or alternatively, option two, which is the distributed program. If the original priority for play in the city centre has lowered or reduced investment is required to activate play to the desired level, then this option distributes funding to a wider set of opportunities. This would still use the 4.956 million budget over 4 years. The option to seek external funding would be available, of course, for specific projects. And for this option, we'd be recommending a scaled down version of option one to enable play in the city centre, and other focuses including Bluff, North Invercargill and South Invercargill. greater investment in those locations would continue the expansion of play provision that's already been investigated in places like Bluff Township, Elizabeth Park, Queen's Park and Donovan Park.
So to conclude, there's a strong case for either option to be made based on the community and stakeholder feedback through the last two long-term plan, play strategy and other recent consultations and engagement efforts. Both options align with the vision and outcomes in the draft play strategy we're about to discuss. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Thanks. Just for a concept around timelines, as you just pointed out, Caroline, this has gone back over a number of years, in fact, before the upgrade of the CBD. How flexible are the timelines for enacting either option?
So presently, the long-term plan has the next 3 financial years as the priority for the funding split.
And that was already signalled in the previous, our current rather long-term plan.
Correct.
Thank you. Reverend Cook.
Yes, looking and reading the submissions and all those sorts of things and looking at the two options, the thing that troubles me about a fixed place like 66D is that it implies that there possibly needs to be staffing implications as well, and I don't think I fully understand what that might mean, just in terms of the fact that it's not people just coming in and doing it for themselves and moving around necessarily, but a fixed centre. The OPEX might be a bit higher as well, and that's a consideration for me, but also indicating that I'm really quite attracted to the distributed program, because I think that continues to highlight the importance of play in our suburbs, rather than, I know that we're trying to activate the centre of the city, but I'm not sure we've got the balance right with this. That's just my thoughts. I'd be interested in hearing others.
Thanks, Reverend Cook. Just a reminder before I carry on, and I've got Trish, Steve and Rhea lined up, that we're not making a decision on what is enacted. We're making a decision on whether or not we go out and include this as part of the consultation to see what the wider public thinks. Noted, Leslie. Trish.
Thank you, through the Chair. Is my understanding that through the distributed program, we wouldn't be using the play hub as designated in D Street?
It could still be delivered, but at a lower level of budget.
But will it necessarily be used?
That's still to be determined. So even if option 1 was selected as the preference, even 66 D Street under that is would still be decided.
All right, so that's an option as well. It can be somewhere else.
Correct.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Steve.
Thanks, Chair. I'm a massive advocate and supporter for a long-term play strategy in the city. I've probably been converted to that. I believe our city wants this, and they actually understand what play can look like in 2025 and beyond. I understand how other cities are leading in this space and the benefits to community wellbeing, economic, city brand, population growth, etc. I just want to break down, I guess, some of the options and the why. 66 D Street, I just noted that it was not even quarter of the recommended size in the RSL report. Limited sunlight, the surrounding wall safety, other potential safety concerns the community might have around its location. I guess it's a lot of money. Is this space, I guess it's to you, Damien, is this a fit? Is it your ideal, or is this an attempt to make it fit? And I guess that's a big concern for me.
I think any location is a challenge in that we don't just have amazing amounts of open space right in the city centre that's conducive to delivering this. The recommended scale was 2,500 square metres based on the feasibility report. The closest location that is only part owned by council is the current S Street car park. Half of it is ILT owned, and so to consider a site like that would have other implications in terms of change in revenue if it's no longer a car park. It would have a lot better sunlight in comparison, but there is no site that ticks every box. There will always be some sort of challenge or change, and so for 66D, it is a size component, but its proximity to other places is good.
Oh, sorry, can I just get one more question? There'll be reasons I know, but I just wanted to get a bit more from you around why the Otapuni Gardens weren't selected as a potential site. Is that because of flood risks or?
Presently, the Environment Southland flood and drainage bylaw prevents construction of infrastructure within 7 metres of that space, so that would be a challenge.
Clarify.
Excellent question. Thanks. Ria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think it's been a secret that I haven't completely supported this project from the get-go since I've been here. And further, given the document that I've read and gone through the information that we've been subsequently previously provided, I still am not in that position to support either one of those options. Reason being is that we have faced some pretty tough financial times in this country. We've been in recessions, short recessions and out of them. My concern is that not only the location at 66D Street, for me, I feel like that's a complete danger area, given that we have yet to see the distinction finish and how Watna Place will be completely trafficised with buses and how the people flow movement will be. We haven't seen how that's going to be. We have somewhere between 150 parks and reserves in the city with over 3,000 hectares of land, and it mind boggles me why we couldn't be fitting that hub somewhere else on just the fringe of the city, like the Gala Street, Queen's Drive green area where the umbrella is. That for me would be safer than the location of D Street. But I also note that this project risks actually having a budget, exceeding its budget of the allocated 6.5 million that this project's been put through with the long-term plan with. When I look at your risk assessment, I also, whilst I think that long-term it is a nice to have, I don't think right now it's necessary to have, given the climate that we're moving into and all that we're looking at borrowing this council in this current long-term plan. So for me, I'm sorry, but I don't support any of those options or this concept at the moment.
Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I suppose I haven't got so much a question as I'm increasingly attracted to the distributed program as the preferred option for a host of reasons, including the ability for us to get more bang for buck in Bluff and our suburban areas, not just in the city centre, and also that the distributed program would give us a bit more time to reflect on where the play hub is best placed and whether in fact we could perhaps introduce some of the play trail and play activations in the city centre while we are still making a final decision about the ideal placement for the hub, if we think 66D Street is not the end of the story. So yeah, I'm feeling increasingly that for the purpose we're here for today, that my preference would be the distributed program.
Thanks, Leslie. Mayor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, reflective of some of the comments already made, I have some issues around 66D Street. One is the size, which has already been mentioned, only a quarter of the ideal size. There's still the future of the Hubbard's Emporium building, and what happens if somebody builds that and puts, uses the building or flattens it and then uses the site for something that's not compatible to a play area. And I think the closeness to the Grand Hotel and the Grand Hotel's clients is a serious issue as well for children playing in there. I wondered whether we've given much thought to the corner of Tay and Kelvin Street, which is part of the ICL block, which is currently sitting vacant, whether we could do something creative there. And I also support what Leslie was saying about Bluff and South City, although I don't prefer Elizabeth Park. I think there's still space to do some creative work in and around Russell Square still, which is sort of in the central part of South City. I think we need investment in both those two areas. Thank you.
Grant.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Look, we have some really good recreation/play facilities in the city, in the wider city, and including in Bluff, that probably need investment. So I think the idea of a dispersed investment program around recreation facilities is a good one. I think it's too narrow in play. I think it needs to be broadened out because, you know, there's lots of different ways people can experience those environments, and I think play just narrows it a bit too much for us. So I think we need a wider strategy on recreational, how we're going to enhance recreational facilities within our city in the areas that have been highlighted in here. And then the other thing around capital, I think what we actually need to do is not borrow the money. I think we actually need to redistribute the capital that may be sitting in some areas and put it into this investment. So, you know, there's some obvious areas around our city that could be reclassified, and that capital could be redistributed through reserves into this investment. And I think we'd end up with some good outcomes. And this morning we talked about the fact that we need to enhance, you know, get greater ratepayers, greater number of ratepayers, and so housing becomes a key thing for there. We've heard about the demand for housing, so I think there's a natural synergy between how we fund this type of program in a dispersed way by the redistribution of capital out of some of our other perhaps assets, as opposed to just borrowing the money. So that's how I think we should progress with a wider recreational strategy, which includes enhancing the existing facilities we've got in the dispersed areas like the Bluff, South City, Queen's Park, Otara and Sandy Point.
Can you help me to understand something that you said in there when you said it needed to be broadened to more than just play? Because I think in the sense of the strategy, that play is a word for activity. What else? What other activities are you referring to?
Well, if you think about cycling, how a small person or child may experience, say, one of our pop-up tracks, and then migrate through that to go, you know, be really good out at Sandy Point on the mountain bike track. Yeah. So there's a connection with the sport of cycling there between learning the skills on one of those small tracks that pop up and then transducing them, and I think part of that process is actually how they access that. You know, in terms of they might not have a bike, they might not have the ability to get out there, but we've got to think about how those people can access recreation.
So it's still activity that you.
It's activity, but it's more than just play. It's actually would end up perhaps in some structured recreation.
Yeah. Sorry, like I said, I think play is just it's a word, but it in the broader context refers to activity. Thanks for that, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. A question for you, Dr. Puddle. When we are talking to the community and we talk about the dispersed play model, how would you describe it as being, you know, different to what you would typically see as a residential playground model that we've got that is dispersed now out in our neighbourhoods? What's different about a dispersed model in this particular program, and how would we explain that to community?
This option effectively provides the investment to do more. So at the moment, the only playgrounds that are identified as destination level and have had a level investment to kind of qualify as that are Queen's Park and Russell Square. And so Bluff hasn't had that type of investment. Other parts of South City in terms of Elizabeth Park and the scope that could be enabled by this investment. So at this stage, the small neighbourhood playgrounds certainly don't receive this level of funding.
So the intent then when we're speaking to community is that and within this dispersed model we would be making pilot or smaller destination playgrounds but in different areas of the city boundary rather than the ones that we've already identified, or major destination playgrounds like one in the inner city. You've got minor to medium investment in more pockets. It's not just your standard swing set and climbing frame and seesaw.
Correct. I would make 2 points in that I wouldn't limit it specifically to the idea of a playground. The discussion in regards to the play strategy is essentially identifying there's a much broader suite of opportunities and experiences that can be enabled for play that are not purely just a playground. So the investment doesn't necessarily mean a playground. And then the other thing is that the community has an interest in improved quality and other opportunities that may not exist within current playgrounds.
So in the example, I suppose, in these slides, that was for Bluff in particular, there could be some sort of water incorporation and what that play or that destination play looks like for Bluff.
Okay, we've just about done a complete lap before I have a comment, and then there's a couple of councillors who want to have a second bite. Rangi, have you got anything you want to?
No.
Thank you.
No, I'm keeping out of the urban play until decision.
Until it's built.
No, until we do some voting.
Thanks. Okay, when we were walking down to council to this meeting, I was having a conversation with Alex and Steve, and reflected back to when our boys were young, and we would say we wanted to come into town and we'd get this moaning and groaning from them. Can we go to McDonald's? Can we go to Chipmunks? And it wasn't about the food options, to be fair. They just wanted to have a play. And we figured out quickly that if we gave them half an hour of play and our attention, we could have a good hour and a half of doing what it was that we needed to do when we got into town. I think people's concept of what play is or was is changing. And everybody uses the example of the Margaret Mayhew playground in Christchurch, and it's a really special one, and it would be nice to have the capital to go to that extent. The fact that it's a play space that can be used by all ages and is recognised is great. I think it's interesting watching how people have been interacting with the street furniture that's gone into Esk and Don Streets. It's not really urban play, and it's interesting to see how young people are engaging with it. And I'm not talking about the older young people who are using it for parkour, although I'm happy to watch it, but I don't need a fast track to an orthopaedic surgeon. But it is nice to see that sort of activity going on in the CBD. I've always been a supporter of having a play strategy at its very base for well-being of people, in that regardless of your position of privilege, there is a lot of underprivilege within our community that we're beginning to recognise. And within that community, there's not a lot of physical activity going on, and that has an impact. So trying to encourage people back into being active is something that I think is a leadership role, and falls upon council and other organisations to do, or to try and assist and enable. Initially, a single play space was something, I think, 2 long-term plans ago that we were advocating for, but the location eluded us. I agree, I'm not sure that 66D Street is the ideal option. And personally, I think a distributed program is good, particularly because it recognises a need in Bluff. But if you think about it, it's already catered for in Windsor.
Yeah.
It's already catered for in South Invercargill. And I'm not talking about Russell Square, I'm talking about just round behind the buildings in South Alive. There are things in place that encourage activity. So there are examples of what's out there that we can improve on and encourage people to engage with. The thing about what the report aims to do is to ask us, do we still have the courage to check with people, bearing in mind what Councillor Bond said about the fact that people are finding it tough, and we all recognise that because we all get that feedback. That through 2 previous LTPs, people have said they value it, and we've looked to support that. So what we want to do now is check, do you still value it, and do we have a preferred option? Personally, I think the distributed program is a great place to start, because it gives us the opportunity to enhance and develop as we go along. So that's where I'm sitting. Pani, I just recognised that I hadn't come to you. So before I go to Trish, Leslie, Rhea and Barry.
No, I totally agree with you. Actually, you sort of reaffirmed on my thinking. I'm really quite supportive of the distributed type program to playgrounds that really do need updating or into this era, into this time. But also, I'm not really that supportive on having a hub right in the city when there's other places that people can go with Queen's Park and with Chickmunts, as you referred to, and other types of things, but having maybe a component of it, but definitely support the play idea.
Thank you. Barry.
Yeah, I'm very much in favour of the distributed one. As far as 66D goes, it's 2 buildings. It's not going to get much sun, and you're looking up the walls of 2 buildings instead of being out in the open. Just one question: with the equipment you're going to buy to distribute to these places, is it going to be duplicated, or is it all going to be different? Or
So similar to my point to Councillor Crackett in terms of any distributed program, if option 2 was selected as preferred, is not necessarily exclusively saying the purchase of playground equipment, but the enablement of play experiences within the chosen locations. And there is definitely an intent to make sure that those locations are providing unique opportunities. So the duplication of play can work at a neighbourhood scale, but certainly to encourage people to explore and to travel and to move around, and any use of play from a tourism perspective needs to think quite heavily about making it unique.
great stuff, thank you.
Trish.
Thank you. Damien, I think you've possibly answered my question with that answer, but I would be thinking that perhaps any kind of activity-based equipment.
Trish, can I ask you to...
Sorry.
Thank you.
Any time of activity-based equipment, you would possibly move it to different places so that they could experience similar things. You know, if you had, I was looking at some of those images that were there. If there was something that was particularly suitable in the play experience, that you might use it in this place for this period and then try somewhere else. Is that what you would see?
That's what the play activations is speaking to. So
Yes.
similar to what we already experienced with the table tennis tables,
Yes.
and have been able to identify places, either locations where that type of play is valuable, or just helping to know that that is a type of play that's valued
To that
all over the
community.
place,
Yeah.
can help determine future decisions about permanency, or just be part of a cycle of seasons and events and other things to continue to cater to various areas of the city.
Yes, thank you.
Leslie.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Look, I was going to invite Dr Puddle to use Bluff to expand a little bit on the potential for lifting to destination play space status, but I think Councillor Crackett's question probably gave enough ability for Dr Puddle to point out the destination play status. So, yeah, that's probably dealt with that.
Thanks, Leslie. Rhea.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I want to go back to commentary that Caroline and Dr Puddle you've made, and you referred to the feasibility study, and you've also referred to the long-term engagement plan. My question to the long-term engagement plan is, and I've asked this question before and I vaguely recall the numbers, how many people did council engage with to support an urban play strategy of councils? And out of those numbers...
I'm not sure that he could answer that because that was done by the engagement staff.
Okay, so there was about 172. So out of those numbers, the portion of positive feedback...
So, sorry, you were just asking a question that you knew the answer for.
Well, I wanted to make sure
Why don't
that I
you
was
just
right.
say it?
Can I speak, please, Mr Chair?
I'm the chair.
Can I speak? Thank you. Out of those people that we engaged with, a high percentage were children from their engagement, and we had youth council participate quite a bit in their engagement too. My question is, how many actual ratepayers answered that survey or engaged in there? Because I'd be concerned that we're looking at spending $6.5 million with a very small engagement party.
again, I'm not sure that they're able to answer that because it's the engagement staff that ran the consultation. But I guess the question to your question is, isn't this a good time to go and ask them again to double check?
Well, we've got it on our information resources in here somewhere. So I'm just
No,
asking.
sorry, what I'm saying is, isn't this a good time to go out for consultation, bearing in mind that, as you said earlier, times are tough, to see if people still want or value it, as they've told us before.
Okay. So they can't answer my question? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. They're not the engagement staff that conducted the consultation.
That's a shame, because answering that question, actually, I believe for people watching it's quite important.
So they've come up with the play strategy, but when we go out and do the consultation, our consultation and engagement staff conduct that with their assistance. Trudy?
Through you, Mr Chair. Councillor Bond, I hear the question from you. From an engagement perspective, we don't delineate about who's a ratepayer, resident, travelling person through the district or anything like that. Our obligation is to have an engagement period with residents and people of the city, and often we don't delineate, we can't. It's just not part of that engagement and consultation process. So the challenges, even the engagement staff wouldn't be able to say that, because we don't, it's just not part of what the LGA prescribes for great engagement, is not saying this person has a greater voice than the next. But I absolutely hear your question, but not even the engagement team could answer that, and that's not the purpose for the engagement of the consultation that would have occurred previously, is to delineate a ratepayer versus a resident.
Thank you for that.
And I think, just to put a context around it, some of that engagement actually goes back over 6 years to two LTPs previous. Steve, thank you for your patience.
Chair. Yeah, just my preferred option is definitely option 2, and just to echo some of what Councillor Soper said, allows us to start and potentially allows us some time as well to also look at the distribution of spend, promotes better accessibility across the city, including Bluff, and also just reading through the consultation, the comments, which I really enjoyed. And I don't believe that they overwhelmingly spoke to the concept of a hub. I loved reading through feedback around pop-up spaces and experiences and imagination for all ages, surprises, learning, exploration, sometimes in those small activations. I guess I've just got a couple of questions around option 2, and it's, I guess, been acknowledged. Why does option 2 presume that the city trails and activation take a back seat to the hub? Because I would have, within an option 2, rather elevated the trail and activation, and potentially there's some cost savings there as well. So I guess, is that just feedback? Is there an opportunity to flip those around and step away from the hub and more into trail and activation?
Absolutely. So I think the full report refers to wanting, if option 2 was selected, wanting to make use of a sort of a place-making and iterative approach.
Okay.
And so that could be done for any of those options, but if the preference is to steer away from or lower the focus on the play hub, then absolutely that could be changed.
And then I think it's important that I'm advocating for the distributed model, but also I'm aware of the fact that cities doing this well have connection within that broader strategy, and I'm nervous about these spaces sitting in isolation from each other. So within the distributed model, is there an opportunity to look to that bigger picture, those maps and those links that would be created via, bikes or walking to each other? I think that's important for me if I'm running with option 2.
Yeah, I guess it starts dipping into the play strategy rather than urban play, but in the delivery of the play strategy, a subsequent implementation plan would be considering the location and the distribution of all forms of play.
But that goes hand in hand with the distributed model, right? There would be opportunities to consider. Cool, thanks, Jim.
Leslie?
Thanks, Mr Chair. Look, I think what Steve's illustrating is what I think several of us have said. In saying that option 2 was our preference, at the moment on page 24, an element of the distributed model says city centre, a scaled down version of option 1. Delivery of this version may necessarily prioritise the play hub with less focus on the trail and play activations. What I was trying to convey, and what Steve just conveyed, and I think a few other people, was that perhaps needs switch to say if option 2's our preference, the city centre part that would be the first to activate as part of option 2 would actually be the trail and the activations rather than the hub as a fixed place. I think that's what the Mayor was conveying as well. 66 isn't the ideal, gives us time to consider where else, but in the meantime to use play trail and play activation as part of option 2.
Okay, so any more questions or comments at this point? Mayor Clark.
Just as a wider thing, as we go out to consultation, I think one of the things that we'll get up against is that there seems to be this belief for some that because it's in the long-term plan, 1, it will be delivered, and 2, we have the appropriate money there. So we're already talking about having, in one of the options, some community sponsorship as well, which in today's environment is not easy to get because they have to prioritise as well. And I think one of the things we'll need to do when we go out in consultation is we'll have to say to our community, look, you know, we've got urban play, we've got an art gallery, we've got rugby park yet to resolve. Which should we do in order? A lot of advice I'm getting back from the community at the moment is that we should focus on doing one project at a time, get it sorted, then move on to the next one being, is it affordable? Yes, it is. And we move on. Trying to do too much.
Valid point, but part of the next process. I think, Mayor Clark, you do make a good point in that as we go out and consult on the options, it would be good to get people to prioritise, but that's the next stage beyond
Thank
this.
you.
That's really useful though, thank you. So first of all, at a committee level, we have a motion that we receive the reports. Somebody move. Barry, seconded. Leslie, put that all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. The next is about a recommendation to council. So again, you get a chance to raise this at council, but it's about going out and consulting and seeing what it is that the citizens of here, there and passing through have to say. And that is, would we have a preferred option? So I'm looking for a motion. Leslie.
I would move the preferred option as option 2.
I support that.
Moved Leslie, seconded Barry. Over 4 years, we haven't specified what those years are, but that's at the next stage. So I'll put that then. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Raise your hand if you'd like your vote counted. Rhea?
Yes,
Grant?
please.
And Mayor Clark. Thank you. Third one is approving public engagement for the urban play program options as part of the annual plan consultation. I'll move. Seconded.
Seconded.
Leslie. Put that. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you for that. And
Mr Chair,
yes, you'd
there's
like
two
your
hands
vote
up
recorded?
against. There are 2 hands.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Grant and Rhea. Similar, and that is the draft play strategy.
Good
Karen.
afternoon. The strategy provides the high-level framework to guide play decision-making for the next 30 years across the Invercargill district. It's updating and replacing the 2014 playground strategy. For the purpose of the strategy, we've defined play as those precious moments of freedom where we choose what to do simply because it's fun. This expands the focus beyond traditional playgrounds to encompass a broader range of play types, as well as the ways that council teams and assets, including land, facilities and documents, can contribute to creating a playful city. And again, I'll hand over to Damien for the details behind the strategy.
I just wanted to start by saying it's been a real pleasure to work on this, to take yours and the community's feedback and aspirations and try and create something that's both exciting and aspirational while also being practical and achievable. So it's been a very enjoyable experience. The vision, Invercargill is a city where play excites and connects everyone. It's a recognition of the importance of play for individuals regardless of demographics, and also for us as a city in terms of social cohesion, business and tourism. It's an acknowledgement of what play means to people and not just purely to children, and not in just a pure traditional sense of fun as separated from the values and the outcomes for a city. The purpose statement, the strategy guides Invercargill City Council to harness the transformative power of play, enabling initiatives and partnerships that enrich our spaces and engage people of all ages in creating a thriving, healthy, joyful and resilient community. This is aiming at a demonstration of our commitment to working alongside schools, businesses, community groups and mana whenua to maximise play opportunities throughout Invercargill. It's not us working alone through traditional means, it's being forward-thinking to make play happen with all of the tools and relationships at our disposal. And then the strategic outcomes are a synthesis of the desires and challenges expressed by yourselves, by staff and the community throughout the engagement process. It's important that they're understood as a collective rather than independent points, so none of them can be sort of run off on their own. Outcome 1, inclusive play opportunities. Play experiences are accessible, engaging for people of all ages and abilities, and our spaces foster social interaction, creativity and physical activity. This is about broadening that understanding and definition of play. This is not just play for 5 to 12-year-olds. This is play as experience and opportunity for all ages, younger years, teenagers, adults, and it's about access and meeting a variety of user as well as caregiver needs as well. Outcome 2, innovative play integration. Play is seamlessly integrated into public spaces throughout Invercargill. This encourages spontaneous play and enhances the vibrancy of our city. This is partly about realising that it's not just our parks that provide play value, but all of the space that we look after as a city. And that opens the door for considering how other aspects of what happens within the city provide that value. Art, culture, heritage, and our wider city infrastructure contributing to those outcomes. Outcome 3, community partnership and ownership. Invercargill's play opportunities are co-created through partnerships with children, youth, the wider community and key organisations, and this embeds a shared sense of ownership and pride in our play environments. Fairly self-explanatory, but this recognises that we can achieve a lot more by working cleverly together with our partners and the community. And lastly, outcome 4, affordable, sustainable and flexible solutions. Investment in our play environments appropriately balances cost effectiveness, quality and affordability for users. Invercargill's play opportunities are adaptable to changing community needs. This highlights the necessary innovation and adaptability required to make play delivery sustainable rather than just a pure focus on traditional playgrounds and renewal processes.
So the play strategy work has opened up a large menu of possible play offerings that we can explore and outlines how we can meet changing trends and community demand while juggling our own capability and capacity. We're seeking your recommendation for Council to endorse public consultation and targeted engagement on the draft play strategy.
Thank you. It's kind of a bit about face in some senses, but so this is the first two part, receiving the report and receiving all the submissions, is the information that's gone in to provide the background detail for a play strategy which we want to go out and talk about options of. So firstly, it's great that we had so many different organisations taking part in that. There are 3 recommendations. It is worth noting, just before we go to that who was the mover and seconder of the previous motion for going out for consultation? Sorry, Leslie and Leslie and Barry. We do actually in the agenda have the wrong dates for consultation, so we should amend those now. It says between 17 March and 17 April. It's 13 March and 13 April. Are you both happy with that amendment?
Yes.
Thank you. So that would also form part of the recommendation to Council for this, that consultation, the annual plan consultation, is 13 March to 13 April. Leslie, sorry, did you have your hand up or was it? No, it was Trish.
No, I was just going to move.
Are you moving the 3?
Yes.
noting the 13th to the 13th.
Yep.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that?
Yep.
Steve? Open for discussion. Evelyn?
Yeah, just noting the variety of things that people commented on, but also commenting to you, Dr. Puddle, in the recommendations, the emphasis on affordability. I think one of the things we've talked about quite a lot is how tough times are, and I think that things that are low cost or free are never more needed than they are now. So I've been quite interested in some of the comments. But if I reflect back, as Councillor Ludlow did, and when my son was young, he really valued the ones that challenged his imagination. And so, because he was the child of somebody who read in books, he actually quite liked the Alice in Wonderland area. He also quite liked looking for all the Peter Pans. And because he lived with an environmentally conscious mother, he also looked for the animals that shouldn't have been around about all the other creatures in the park, like rabbits and things, and commented on those. So I think that play and activation is about us as well as adults, stimulating the minds of our children, and what your paper did was stimulate my mind and my imagination to rethink, even for me, what I think of as play. Noting that somebody asked that we have a Pokemon site, and didn't know that we didn't have one, but I know friends who play that. So are these things achievable by us, or do they depend on the goodwill of other agencies, I guess is my question.
Just before we go to Dr. Puddle for an answer, we absolutely have places all over town that you can capture Pokemon.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ludlow. If you had not told me, I would not have known.
Not that I've caught one personally, but I've watched a young person chase them. Damien?
So if I understand the question correctly, that are the outcomes of the strategy achievable, or is the variety of opportunities achievable?
Variety, I think.
Achievable.
Well, Pokemon particularly, because apparently that's important.
Yeah, that is something specifically that exists independent of what we do. But the opportunity to integrate and consider augmented reality or digital play opportunities, all of those things are certainly conceivable.
Grant?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Page 3 of 7 of report of 40 on board box, the options, the second option, stop or pause, it says this means the play strategy will not be developed and the existing playground strategy will stay. So what's the operational cost of developing the play strategy from here if it gets supported? What sort of time, resources?
The strategy is going to be running hand in hand with the long-term plan consultation. So unfortunately I can't pull out the cost of that to give you that answer, Councillor Dermody.
So you have no idea what it'll cost to develop?
So we're springboarding off the other consultation, I guess, is one way of looking at it.
The play strategy itself is about directing decision making regardless of whatever budget is determined.
So is that option there actually not right then? That's written in the report. So it portrays the fact that there's a cost of not doing this.
For stopping or pausing, option 2.
Doesn't it more mean that we would, if option 2 was taken, the play strategy wouldn't be developed, we'd be sticking with the old original playground strategy that the play strategy is meant to replace, but it wouldn't be any longer fit for purpose, and it wouldn't guide any decisions we made about the urban play program because it wouldn't be there.
So,
absolutely.
So here's my question, what's the cost of developing it? And we don't know.
because it's, as we just said, it's actually going alongside, the consultation element is going to be going alongside the long-term plan, so we haven't actually allocated the costs as such to understand which part of the consultation is specifically play and which part of it is for the rest of the long-term plan.
Sorry, Rex, did you have something to add?
Just for clarity, Councillor Dermody, seeking clarity for your question. If we were to pause here, you're asking what savings we would make. Okay, so the play strategy is in draft form now. So the costs related to the development of the draft play strategy has been done under the preparation of Damien in his role. So if it was to pause now, all we would be pausing was not going through the process to adopt the strategy, and it would stay in its draft form. So there's no cost.
Yeah, but what if it is adopted? What is then the cost?
Oh, okay. So then if it's adopted, the next stage will be that it becomes not just a council document, but a city document that other agencies can pick up on as well, and an implementation plan to deliver on the strategy outcomes would be part of what both this council but other agencies could pick up as well. And so those costs would be dependent on what's brought to bear from an implementation perspective.
So if developers come forward with some proposal and they highlight the fact that there are parts of it that are compliant with the council's play strategy, that assists in the consideration of those proposals?
The play strategy could support their development work.
But it would require some resourcing. We have to, wouldn't it?
To write it?
No, once it's enacted.
If
people are, wanting to understand what our play strategy is, there'll be someone in council that'll be working on that part of the work here.
There will be people who will incorporate it into work programs.
Right, okay, yeah, so a full part of work,
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, the three recommendations, 2 to the committee and 1 to council, have been moved and seconded. I'll put that. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you for that. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Damien.
Good work.
Councillors, that brings us to the end of the public agenda. We're going to be moving into public excluded to receive the minutes of the PX session of Community Wellbeing and Regulatory from December 10, and also for an Arts Sector Opportunities and Working Group update. And we're going into public excluded for reasons as listed under Section 721 and Section 48(1)(a) of the Local Government Act. I'll put that, if there's a seconder. Barry, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you for those